Christ come into your life?
Well, actually, I had just got off work. It was a Friday night, and I was just got paid, and I had it in mind to go out and party this particular night. And where I was at about to get my night started, there was a revival across the street.
Mm.
Now, I wasn't really too much in the church. I had always thought revival meant just church outside. And something inside me just kept calling me, and I kept looking over at the sign, revival, revival. And I actually had a beer in my hand, hadn't opened it yet. And I was, it was a struggle back and forth. And, a particular point, for some reason, I threw the beer away
Mm.
and went over there to the revival, and it was at Evangelistic Temple of Faith. Now, I didn't join the church, but that particular night I did accept Christ in my life because it was Gail Reese that was facilitating the service that night. And it was like she read the headlines from the paper that day and preached half the Bible. And all of a sudden, heaven touched earth, God wouldn't go away. And that's when Christ came into my life. That was 2001.
In 2001, you received Jesus as your Lord and Savior.
I just,
And right now, what are you doing? I understand that you are a minister at uh,
True Holiness
True
Temple.
Holiness Temple. Okay, and your pastor is
Bishop Anthony Dixon Sr.
Bishop Anthony Dixon Sr. And you came to us today regarding an interesting program about second step.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay, second step is a social mentoring and community programming,
Okay.
service. It's offered by the National Committee for Children. It's used in several states, around the country. Second step is actually a standard curriculum within several school systems. And my hope for Cleveland was to implement second step through the churches through an outreach wraparound known as Breaking Cycles.
Okay.
Because a lot of programming is here today, gone tomorrow. But the churches are grassroots. We've been here, we're here, and we're going to be here. And because of the urgency of violence prevention, and social intervention, the churches have the manpower to carry the weight of a program like Second Step. The schools have been using social emotional learning, which is only one of the services offered by Second Step. But the churches have the manpower to offer the full spectrum of the Second Step program, and that's what we would like to do, bring the faith-based communities into it and train people up to be pro-social coaches. And what we would do is train people up as second step facilitators, hoping that eventually we can get second step accepted as a standard curriculum within the CMSD and maneuver second step facilitators into the schools. It would still operate through the churches, and we wouldn't just address K through 12, we would get involved with the families and with the communities in order to do a complete wraparound social renovation.
Okay. So in give me some particulars, some straight to the point. How what kind of problems are you working with? What kind of issues come to second step?
Well, second step deliver, they address behavioral problems.
Okay.
And behavioral problems with children, disciplinary problems.
Okay.
As you know, a lot of the classes are overcrowded, and it's hard enough for the teacher just to teach, let alone handle behavior problems, which when I was coming up, there was a time students could stick around after school and get tutoring, and they don't have that benefit anymore.
So when you say behavioral problems, um,
Disciplinary.
disciplinary problems. So a child comes to school and he's a bully. What do you do to help cure that bully of bullying? You give me an example of how that works.
Well, through pro social coaching, positive
Okay,
behavior support.
pro social coaching. What does that mean for the guy that's listening for the first time? What is pro social
Pro-social coaching is
Coaching.
positive behavior support.
Okay.
It's a design alliance where you get them to, express themselves and be open about how they feel about life, what their values are. Are they coming from an environment that's pushing them towards negative behavior? And we try to steer them towards positive behavior.
So what happened to the good old fashioned don't spare the rod? Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Well, by law, you're not allowed to discipline your children anymore.
Oh yeah, isn't that terrible?
They say, what
Uh-huh.
is that they call it, where you stand them up in the corner? A
Oh yeah, time
timeout.
out, time out, time out. So is I mean is that what you have to use as time out, or are there other techniques that are available to help a child understand the importance of not bullying and not to putting their hands on other kids?
Well, the thing is, you want to implement counseling, mentoring, and you have to be reality flexible because these kids, they're going to receive, intelligence training in the school system, but they're not getting any adaptive coaching.
Mm,
And it's hard for them to adapt when they have no one available to address them according to the world the way it's set up today. You just want to sit them in front of, some school books and expect them to go out here and be productive members of society, but it takes more than that.
and so this is something, Minister Baldwin, that you want to, or that is implemented right now in schools across the country. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, but you're taking another vein. You're going to the church community uh, with this second step. Um, why? Why not just let the schools do it?
The schools really don't have the manpower because their primary function is to be an educator to the children.
Hmm.
And now you're expecting them to be an educator, a mental health worker, a social worker, and that takes away from their strength to educate the children. So, what they actually need is an outside agency that's qualified and equipped to handle the extra weight of the mentoring that the children need.
Got it.
And to get involved with the children, what the breaking cycles, coaches would do with the permission of the children's parents, get involved with the families, and hopefully on weekends have community workshops where it involves the teachers, the families, the children, and bring everybody together at a round table where we can all be on the same page.
What's the success of this second step program? I know it's not fully here in Cleveland, but in other areas. Give me some statistics. Give me some ideas of how it's doing in other areas.
Right now, they have webinars by the CMSD, and they give monthly reports on what Second Step is doing. Massachusetts seems to be taking the lead in it. Now there are times Second Step has a large impact on turning children around, and sometimes it may not reach as many, but is making consistent difference.
Got it. Got it.
So it
Um,
is making a needed difference.
okay. Okay. And what other areas besides, I gave an example of kids bullying and stuff like that. What other type of second step helps are there?
Trauma resilience,
Okay.
um,
So now when you say
restorative practice.
trauma resilience, are you talking about that they were traumatized by something, sort of like how you hear like the mass shooting that took place in Vegas, um, and they sent counselors to counsel families and kids and stuff like that. Is that something that this second step does, or is it something different?
Well, there's a full spectrum
Okay.
that causes trauma. When you hear trauma, yes, the first thing that comes to someone's mind is
A loss of
physical
right,
devastation,
right,
from violence or something. People can be traumatized by constant exposure to a negative environment or feeling neglected over a period of time, and they begin to feel like they don't count.
right.
Actually, trauma is caused by what's known as a negative override sentiment. Negative override sentiment is what causes the condition known as shell shock. And the fact is, once someone has become a victim of negative override sentiment, they're
Hmm.
going to gravitate to what they value
Okay.
because they're going to interpret things as not in their favor or
Mm.
against them, and they're going to put up a shield. They're going to withdraw. They're not going to engage effectively with life, and they need to be primed away from it. There is no just one simple answer that's going to happen overnight. So, breaking cycles and second step uses a priming approach to gradually bridge them from where they are to where we want them to be in a positive state of mind.
Well, do me a favor, for our audience, connect the dots for me. Um, what motivate you to become involved in this program?
What motivated me was several years ago. There was a counseling service at True Holiness Temple known as Community Fathers and Families. And I started out counseling in the church. But then, as I began to see the way society was taking a turn, I felt like I was trying to repair a forest one tree at a time. In other words, the job would never get done. And I was wondering how in the world could I make a greater impact and cover more ground. And it was actually a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell that gave me the idea. It made a statement that because of the nutrients carried by the water used for irrigation, the more that the ground is cultivated, the more fertile it becomes. And I'm starting thinking, how can I fertilize the ground? How can I fertilize the ground? What is the soil that I need to get the nutrients into? And I decided to go to City Hall and see how they could help me because that's where the decisions are made that governs our life. And it just so happens that the day I walked in there, it was Councilman Zach Reed that told me City Hall was forming a subcommittee to address the violence in Cleveland. And after meeting with them about this subcommittee, they put me on the subcommittee. And ever since then, we've basically been at the drawing board using what's known as the public health model, which uses every facet of everyday function in society. Everybody involved with, society's function has a hand in it. Because the thing is, they had been trying to address the violence individually.
Hmm.
They had been getting results, but nothing lasting, and nobody had been covering any significant ground with making a necessary impact. So they decided to bring everybody together.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So the city has some involvement or a great deal of involvement in what you're doing. You're doing as well.
And here's the thing, when they asked me, could I get the churches involved, they actually admitted they should have done that a long time ago because to me, they made God their last resort instead of
Mm.
their first response.
Wow.
And so now they're turning to the powers that be to help them.
Well, that is good. At least they're figuring it out. Like you said, they were at the drawing board, and they're figuring out. Well, you know what? Hey, man, I really appreciate all that you're doing. I'm sure our audience appreciate as they've been logging on, watching you, what you've been doing, what you're going to do. How do our audience, how do churches, pastors, whoever, get in contact with you?
As I said, my name is Minister Kevin Baldwin at True Holiness Temple. We're at 7710 Euclid. You can catch me on Sundays after service. Service usually lets out between 1 and 1:30, and I'm never in any hurry to leave the church. You can stop by the church and see me on a Sunday afternoon, or I can be reached at these two numbers. The church number at True Holiness is 216 391 2167. My direct cell phone number is 216 346 0862. So I can be reached at either one of those two numbers.
Well, we want to thank you again for just coming, sharing with us here on KAZ Radio, and we look forward to having you back to share more with our KAZ Radio audience.
Thank you for having me on here because Enough is enough. It's time for change. And you won't change anything you accept as normal.
Amen. God bless you and have a great day. And stay tuned for more of KAZ Radio.